Most real estate investors experimenting with AI right now are actually making themselves worse investors. And if you're not careful, you could be doing the exact same thing without realizing it. Because this is one of those moments where it looks like you're getting ahead when you're actually falling behind. And that's the part nobody talks about. Because AI is powerful, but if you use it the wrong way, it doesn't just waste time, it can lead to bad decisions. I've been watching this closely, both in my own investing over 25 years and working with thousands of high-income professionals who are actively using AI in real estate right now. So in this video, I want to walk you through the biggest mistakes I'm starting to see, and more importantly, how to avoid them so you can actually get an edge. And make sure you stick with me, because one of those mistakes is subtle, and it's the one I see costing people the most money. Now, before we get into the mistakes, you need to understand what's actually happening right now. At least in 2026, I'm not seeing AI completely disrupt real estate investing, but I am seeing certain investors start to gain a real edge. And it has nothing to do with using more tools or being more technical. It's because they're using AI in a more intentional and consistent way. So let's walk through the biggest mistakes, because if you can avoid these, you're already ahead of most people experimenting with this right now. And the first mistake is where almost everyone starts off wrong. If you get this first one wrong, everything else you do with AI starts to break down. Mistake number one, using AI before you understand the fundamentals of real estate investing. AI can give you answers. It can analyze deals. It can sound very convincing. But if you don't understand what actually makes a good deal, you have no way to evaluate whether those answers make sense. Here's a specific example. And this is where I see a lot of investors literally lowering their standards without realizing it. I'll hear investors say things like, I'm just looking for $100 a door, or sometimes even cash flow neutral. And the reasoning is usually the same. The market's too competitive. Interest rates are too high. It's just not possible to do better right now. But that's not true. There are still ways to find deals that perform far better than that. You just have to know what to look for. And here's where AI makes this worse. If you go to AI and say, is $100 a door reasonable in today's market? It probably will say yes. But that's based on the assumption you gave it. AI doesn't know what's possible. It only knows what you tell it. And for high-income earners, this really matters because $100 a door is not going to move the needle for you. If your goal is to create meaningful income or offset a significant amount of taxes, you have to be aiming for something much higher. The issue isn't bad AI, it's flawed assumptions going in. And that's why fundamentals matter so much, because AI works best when it's layered on top of clear, informed thinking. Now, if that was the only issue, it wouldn't be that dangerous. But the second mistake compounds it. Mistake number two, using AI to confirm what you already want to believe. Working with thousands of high-income professionals, one thing we see consistently, most people don't test their assumptions enough. They'll look at one data point, maybe two, and then move forward as if it's accurate. And that's already a problem, even without AI. And AI doesn't fix that problem, it makes it worse. Because if you ask AI a question in a certain way, it will give you an answer that aligns with how you framed it. It doesn't challenge your thinking, it validates it. And in investing, that's a dangerous place to be. Because in investing, the goal is not to prove yourself right. It's to understand where you might be wrong. What we teach instead is to triangulate your assumptions, to gather information from multiple sources and compare them. For example, if you're estimating rents, you might look at comps, talk to a property manager, and review market data. AI can actually make this process much more powerful. It can help you analyze different sources, surface inconsistencies, and ask better follow-up questions, but only if you're using it that way. If you're using AI to validate what you already believe, you're not improving your thinking. You're reinforcing your bias. So a better way to use AI is to ask, what am I missing? What assumptions should I be questioning? Where do these data points conflict? And that's where the real edge comes from. So now you've got flawed assumptions and reinforced confidence. The next mistake is where people start making real financial errors. Mistake number three, over-relying on AI outputs. Even if you ask a good question, AI is still working with incomplete information. It doesn't have full context on your specific deal, your exact property, or what's happening in your market right now. Because this is where things look right, but aren't. For example, let's say you ask AI to estimate rent for a property. It might give you a number that sounds very reasonable, but there are factors it just can't account for. First, it doesn't necessarily take into account where we are in the market cycle. If we're heading into a recession, renters may not be able to absorb rent increases, and you might need to offer concessions. Second, it doesn't right off the bat understand the nuances of your neighborhood. You could be in an area with higher delinquencies, more turnover, or just a more challenging tenant base. And third, it doesn't know the quality of your property. If your finishes are lower end or the layout is not ideal, that's going to impact what you can realistically get in rent. So while the number might sound right, it can easily be off in a way that materially impacts your deal. The answer sounds confident, but confidence is not the same as accuracy. So instead of relying on that one input, you still need to validate it. Look at comps, talk to a property manager, compare multiple data points. AI is not a source of truth, it's a starting point. Now, even if you fix your analysis, there's another trap that shows up once you start scaling. Mistake number 4, trying to automate too much. I've seen people try to move toward completely automating their communication with guests in short-term rentals, and it usually starts off working pretty well. They use AI to respond to common questions like check-in instructions, Wi-Fi, parking, and other basic things. And this is where that convenience starts quietly damaging your business. Over time, it feels efficient, it saves time, and starts to feel like a real system. But what happens is they start to rely on it more and more. And then eventually, something goes wrong. A guest has an issue, something breaks, there's a complaint. Now you're in a situation where it actually matters how you respond. But instead of stepping in, they're still relying on AI. And that's when things start to fall apart. AI doesn't have the same judgment or empathy. It doesn't fully understand the right tone in a high-stakes situation, at least not yet. So instead of de-escalating, it can make things worse. A small problem can become a bad review. The issue isn't using AI for communication, it's automating too much of it. The highest value parts of what you do are decision-making, judgment, communication, and relationships. Those still require a human touch. But the key is knowing what AI can handle and not automating something until you're confident it can handle it well. AI can support those things, but it shouldn't replace them, at least not now. But even beyond operations, there's something AI simply can't replace. And this is where the biggest opportunities still come from. Mistake number 5, ignoring relationships. Real estate has always been a relationship-driven business, and that hasn't changed. Here's a real example of a deal we just closed on this year. The seller had bought the property for $18 million and put in another $3 million. So they were into the deal for $21 million. We were able to buy it for $11 million. And this is the part most investors underestimate until it's too late. That didn't come from a listing. It didn't come from AI. It came from relationships built over time. That's how a lot of the best opportunities show up, through brokers, owners, and people in your network. And that's not something AI is going to surface for you. AI can support how you manage relationships. It can't create them. And finally, this last mistake is subtle, but it's what separates people who get results from people who stay stuck experimenting. And that last mistake is overcomplicating things. There are a lot of tools, a lot of possibilities, and a lot of ways you could use AI. But more complexity doesn't necessarily lead to better results, because more tools doesn't mean more progress. The investors getting the best results right now are keeping things simple. AI is great in analyzing complex situations. It's great at handling repetitive tasks. And it's also great at reducing the time it takes to do something that used to take a long time. But you don't need it where there's no real leverage. So instead of trying to automate everything, focus on where AI actually creates value. So when you step back and look at all this, it comes down to one simple idea. AI is not the advantage by itself. The advantage is how you use it. And this is the part you need to get right. AI will either amplify your edge or your mistakes. The investors who win with AI are not the ones using it the most. They're the ones using it the most intentionally. They understand the fundamentals. They ask better questions, and they validate their assumptions. And they use AI to support their thinking, not replace it. If you're starting to use AI in your investing and you want to make sure you're applying it the right way, we've helped thousands of high-income professionals do exactly that. And if you don't fix this early, you'll spend months thinking you're improving without actually moving forward. You can book a free strategy call with our team. And yes, you'll be speaking to an actual human, not an AI bot. We'll help you think through your situation, your goals, and how to apply this in a way that actually moves the needle. There's a link below if you want to learn more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.